0 and 1 were two distinct numbers in a world where technology reigned supreme. They were paired digits, or pieces, that framed the groundwork of all computerized correspondence and calculation. 0 and 1 had big plans to explore the vast and exciting programming world. Despite their simple appearance, 0 was a well-disposed and active piece, consistently anxious to learn and investigate novel thoughts. 1 was more serious and calculated, liking to thoroughly consider things prior to making a move. 0 and 1 worked well together despite their differences and were always prepared to tackle new coding challenges together, at some point, while investigating the computerized domain. 0 and 1 coincidentally found a puzzling record containing a perplexing calculation written in double code. They decided to try to decipher the algorithm and see where it would take them, intrigued by the challenge. As they unraveled the code, 0 and 1 understood that they were on the cusp of an inconceivable experience. They were taken on a journey through the digital world by the algorithm, from the internet's depths to computers' inner workings and beyond. 0 and 1 worked their way through a variety of interesting characters and coding challenges along the way. They gained knowledge about the significance of cybersecurity, the advantages of teamwork, and the enormous potential of binary code. 0 and 1 began to realize that their journey was more than just a fun adventure as they delved deeper into the programming world. They were acquiring useful knowledge and skills that would enable them to navigate the digital landscape and have a positive effect on the world around them. Join 0 and 1 on their paired experiences as they find the sorcery of programming and figure out how to tackle the force of parallel code. They will work together to discover the wonders of the digital world and motivate a new generation of programmers and tech enthusiasts. 0 and 1 were partaking in a peaceful day in their advanced world, investigating the inward operations of their PC and talking about their most recent coding projects. Unexpectedly, something grabbed their attention, a bizarre example of zeros and ones looking across the screen. "What's that?" 0 asked, pointing to the code that was scrolling. 1 responded, "I don't know." However, it appears to be a binary code. 0 and 1 had previously heard of binary code. With just 2 digits, it was the language of computers, 1 and 0. Each piece of information in the computerized world was addressed by a blend of these two numbers. 0 and 1 decided to investigate out of curiosity. They found a secret file in the computer's memory by following the code trail. A cryptic message greeted them as they opened the file. "Your journey will begin if you decode me." 0 and 1 took a gander at one another, energy working in their souls. They realized that this was the start of a staggering experience. "How about we make it happen?" said 0, assurance in her voice. Together, 0 and 1 started to interpret the twofold code. They were determined to solve the mystery, despite the laborious and slow pace. As they worked, they started to understand the fantastic force of double code. "It's astounding," said 0. "We can represent everything in the digital world with just these 2 digits." In agreement, one person nodded. "It's the underpinning of all processing." There would be no computers, internet, or digital technology without binary code. 0 and 1 began to develop a completely new perspective on the world as they worked on it. Everything they looked at had patterns of ones and zeros, in the colors of the digital images, the letters on the screen, and the background music sounds. At long last, late night of disentangling, they deciphered the parallel code. 0 and 1 were taken on a journey through the inner workings of computers, the depths of the internet, and beyond when the message showed a map of the digital world. When they realized that their journey had only just begun, they were filled with excitement. They realized that they were going to leave on an extraordinary experience, loaded up with difficulties, revelations, and new companions. 0 and 1 set out on their journey together, eager to discover more about the power of binary code and the wonders of the digital world. They were aware as they traveled that they were learning a language that could change the world around them and was truly unique. Their journey through binary space would forever alter their lives, and so it began. 0 and 1 had forever been two of the main digits in the computerized world, yet they had never met. That is, until one game-changing day when their ways at last crossed. 0 was a cordial and active piece, consistently anxious to make new companions and learn new things. 1 was more held and wary, liking to adhere to what she knew and take as much time as is needed with new encounters. It was on a standard coding project that their ways at last crossed. When 0 and 1 noticed that their coding styles were complementary, they were both working on a program to maximize the memory performance of their computers. The two of them had various qualities and shortcomings, and they could perceive how their abilities could complete one another. 0 was fascinated by 1's meticulous coding approach and attention to detail. 1, on the other hand, admired 0's inventiveness and risk-taking attitude. As they cooperated, 0 and 1 started to understand that they made an incredible group. Together, they were able to accomplish things they couldn't have done on their own. As a result, they began collaborating on increasingly more projects. Over the long run, 0 and 1 turned into the best of companions. They would talk about their hopes and dreams, explore the digital world, and work long hours on coding projects. They discussed the power of binary code and the fact that it served as the basis for all computing. They wondered about the unimaginable capability of innovation to influence the world. And they longed for utilizing their abilities to have a constructive outcome. As they cooperated, 0 and 1 found that they shared a lot of practically speaking. The two of them cherished riddles and critical thinking, and the two of them had an enthusiasm for learning and investigating groundbreaking thoughts. They would frequently go through hours examining the most recent leap forwards in software engineering or discussing the benefits of various programming dialects. They would investigate the most recent programming devices and innovations and trial with new coding methods. Over the long haul, 0 and 1 became known as the powerful team of the advanced world. They were never afraid to try something new and were always eager to take on new challenges. As they progressed forward with their parallel undertakings, 0 and 1 realized that they had each other's backs. They were aware that they would face any challenges together, united by their deep friendship and love of programming. As a result, they continued their collaborative exploration of digital wonders. They were aware that their journey was only just getting started and that their binary adventures could take place at any time in the future. 0 and 1 had turned into the best of companions since they initially met. However, it wasn't generally going great for the powerful team of the computerized world. There were times when they didn't agree on a project or their coding styles didn't match up. But because they respected each other and loved programming together, they always came up with a solution. At some point, as they were dealing with an especially difficult venture, 0 and 1 hit a significant barricade. They had labored for countless hours, but nothing seemed to be happening. Both of them were depressed and frustrated, but then something incredible transpired. 0 had a thought. He thought it might work, even though it was a risky move. 1 initially hesitated, but she trusted 0's judgment. Together, they executed 0's thought, and surprisingly, it worked impeccably. They had tackled the issue that had been keeping them down for such a long time. 0 and 1 were blissful. They gave each other hugs and jumped around like they could conquer the world. They then realized how much they were dependent on one another. They had become something beyond companions. They were accomplices in programming, and they supplemented each other flawlessly. 0 and 1 were aware that they would be able to work on any project together from that point forward. They were aware that they could always count on one another for support and encouragement, and that they had each other's backs. After some time, their association just developed further. They continued to push each other to new levels of creativity and innovation as they worked on increasingly difficult projects. They were constantly exchanging new concepts and methods and learning from one another. They also came to the realization that they had become more than just great programmers. Rather, they had become the best of friends as they worked together. They went through hours together, chipping away at projects, yet additionally investigating the miracles of the computerized world. They would go to various corners of the web, finding new sites, applications, and projects. They would try out various coding languages and methods as they awed at the power of binary code. They would examine the most recent forward leaps in software engineering, and they would dream about the potential outcomes representing things to come. Furthermore, through everything, they would constantly show up for one another. They realized that regardless of what difficulties lay ahead, they would confront them together, joined in their adoration for programming and their profound fellowship. As they continued on their binary adventures, 0 and 1 knew that their partnership was one of the most important things in their lives. They knew that their friendship was a special bond that would last a lifetime, and that together, they could achieve anything. 0 and 1's partnership had only grown stronger over time as they had worked together for some time. They had handled many programming projects together, every one more testing than the last. However, they had never confronted a test very like the one that was going to come their direction. Everything began when they got a message from a gathering of individual software engineers. They had caught wind of Nothing and 1's abilities and needed to move them to a coding challenge. The prospect of a new challenge thrilled 0 and 1. Despite the fact that they had never done so before, they were confident in their abilities. They jumped at the chance and immediately got to work on getting ready for the big day. 0 and 1 worked on their project every spare moment as the contest was about to end in a few weeks. They spent a lot of time perfecting their coding methods, testing their code, and coming up with new concepts. 0 and 1 were brimming with glee and anticipation as the contest day approached. They were eager to demonstrate their abilities and compete with some of the world's best programmers. At the point when the day at last showed up, Nothing and 1 advanced toward the challenge scene. They were encircled by many different developers, everyone zeroed in eagerly on their own task. The project that 0 and 1 worked on was a complicated program that would reenact a digital ecosystem. They had put a lot of effort into the project, which was challenging, and they were confident that the judges would be impressed. 0 and 1 jumped right into their project when the competition started. They worked energetically, tweaking their code and making changes as they came. As the hours passed, 0 and 1's undertaking started to come to fruition. It was a gorgeous, intricate digital world with a wide variety of plants and animals. The appointed authorities were dazzled by the degree of detail and intricacy in their undertaking. But then something went wrong. A bug in their code caused a devastating framework disappointment, and the whole computerized world they had made started to disentangle. Devastated were 0 and 1. They had put in a lot of effort on their project, but now it appeared as though their efforts had been in vain. However, at that point something astounding occurred. 0 had a thought. He thought it might work, even though it was a risky move. 1 initially hesitated, but she trusted 0's judgment. Together, they executed 0's thought, and surprisingly, it worked impeccably. The issue that had been holding them back had been resolved. They worked rapidly to fix the bug, and all of a sudden, Their computerized world was back ready. As the challenge came to a nearby, the appointed authorities pursued their choice. 0 and 1 had won in front of the rest of the competition. They gave each other a tight hug because they were so happy about their success. They had confronted an extreme test, yet they had ended up as the winner because of their diligent effort, assurance, and in particular, their kinship. As they left the challenge setting, 0 and 1 glanced back at the advanced world they had made. It was evidence of their programming abilities and close friendship. Furthermore, they realized that there would be a lot more difficulties ahead. However, they were prepared to confront them together as the powerful pair of the computerized world. 0 and 1 had faced many coding challenges together, but none had been quite as daunting as the one they faced now. It was a complex piece of code that had been causing headaches for programmers all over the world, and 0 and 1 had been tasked with finding a solution. They spent days poring over the code, analyzing every line and every variable. It was like trying to solve a giant puzzle with no clear solution in sight. As the days turned into weeks, 0 and 1 began to feel the strain. They were working long hours, barely taking breaks, and subsisting on nothing but coffee and takeout food. Despite their best efforts, the code continued to elude them. They tried different approaches, different coding languages, even different programming tools, but nothing seemed to work. The frustration was beginning to take its toll on 0 and 1. They started to bicker and argue over the smallest details, and their normally strong partnership was beginning to fray at the edges. One day, after yet another failed attempt at cracking the code, 0 stormed out of their workspace in frustration. 1 sat alone at the computer, feeling lost and hopeless. It was then that she realized something important. They had been so focused on the code that they had forgotten the most important part of programming, creativity. With a newfound sense of determination, 1 sat down at the computer and began to brainstorm. She thought about the code in a new way, looking at it from different angles and trying out new ideas, and then she had it. A breakthrough. A small tweak to the code that changed everything. She called 0 back into the workspace, and they began to work on the new code together. It was like a breath of fresh air, and the two of them worked together seamlessly once again. As they worked, they realized that the solution had been right in front of them all along. They had just needed to step back and approach the problem from a new perspective. With the new code in place, they ran a test, and to their amazement, it worked perfectly. They had cracked the code that had stumped programmers all over the world. They hugged each other, feeling a sense of relief and triumph. They had faced a tough challenge, but they had come out on top, thanks to their creativity, determination, and most of all, their friendship. As they walked out of the workspace, 0 and 1 knew that there would be many more challenges ahead. But they also knew that they could face them together, armed with the power of creativity and the strength of their friendship. A binary journey through the internet. Although 0 and 1 had been aware of the internet for some time, they had never actually used it for themselves. They had been told that it was a huge network of computers connected by cables and wireless signals, but they had no idea how it all worked. At some point, they chose to set out on an excursion through the web to get more familiar with this strange organization. They jumped into the digital world after donning their virtual reality headsets. As they went through the web, they saw a huge swath of sites, every one loaded up with data, pictures, and sounds. They saw news websites, social media sites, online stores, and a plethora of other online destinations. In any case, what captivated them the most was the basic innovation that made it all conceivable: digital code. They perceived how twofold code was utilized to address a wide range of data on the web, from text and pictures to recordings and music. They learned how packets, each containing a set of binary digits that represented a piece of information, carried data across the network. They also learned about the various protocols like TCP, IP, HTTP, and FTP that were used to control data transmission over the Internet. They witnessed how these protocols made it possible for computers to communicate with one another over vast distances, making it possible for people all over the world to connect with one another and share information. As they ventured through the web, they experienced different difficulties, like sluggish associations and broken joins. However, they persevered and utilized their coding abilities to identify and resolve issues as they arose. Along the way, they also got to know a lot of interesting people, from helpful bots who helped them navigate the digital landscape to malicious viruses and hackers who tried to stop them. Notwithstanding the difficulties, 0 and 1 were captivated by all that they saw and experienced on their excursion. They understood that the web was an unbelievable creation, made conceivable by the force of parallel code and the resourcefulness of incalculable developers and architects. As they arrived at the finish of their excursion, they thought back on all that they had learned and experienced. They had a profound appreciation for both the power of technology and its creators. They were eager to continue learning and exploring, even though they were aware that their journey through the Internet had only scratched the surface of what was possible. With their coding abilities and their vast interest, they were prepared for whatever the computerized world had available for them. More stories about 0 and 1 can be read in the book The Binary Adventures of 0 and 1. Look for the book on Amazon, link on the channel. 0 and 1 learn about cybersecurity. Although 0 and 1 had been on numerous adventures together, this one was their most significant yet. They were going to learn about cybersecurity and how to keep others and themselves safe online. When they first started their research, they found that cybersecurity was a complicated field that was always changing. They learned about viruses, malware, and phishing attacks, among other kinds of threats. They likewise discovered that anybody could be an objective of a digital assault, no matter what their age or level of specialized skill. They saw how hackers could use stolen sensitive data to commit identity theft or fraud, such as passwords and credit card numbers. Yet, 0 and 1 were not hindered. They were aware that they could safeguard themselves and others from cyber attacks with the appropriate information and resources. They started by learning about fundamental security measures like creating secure passwords, updating their software, and being cautious when opening email attachments and links. They also learned about more sophisticated security measures, like how to encrypt their online traffic with virtual private networks, VPNs, and set up two-factor authentication to protect their accounts even further. However, they did not end there. They likewise found out about the significance of online protection in the more extensive setting of society. They perceived how digital assaults could disturb basic framework, like power networks and transportation frameworks, and cause far-reaching confusion and damage. They found out about the job that state-run administrations and organizations play in network safety, and the significance of worldwide collaboration in battling digital dangers. 0 and 1 saw how cybersecurity was intertwined with other crucial issues like democracy, freedom of speech, and privacy as they dug deeper into the subject. They found out about the different discussions and contentions that encompassed these issues, and how various partners had alternate points of view and needs. However, through everything, 0 and 1 stayed focused on their objective of advancing network safety and shielding individuals from online dangers. They were eager to use their coding abilities to make a difference because they were aware that they could be an effective weapon in this battle, as they finished their excursion through the universe of network protection. 0 and 1 felt a profound feeling of fulfillment and achievement. They were aware that they had acquired a lot of knowledge, but they also understood that there was always more to learn and new difficulties to face. However, they were confident that with their knowledge and abilities, they would be able to overcome any obstacle and assist others in doing the same. They were glad to be important for the developing local area of network protection experts who were working energetically to make the computerized world a more secure and safer spot. More stories about 0 and 1 can be read in the book The Binary Adventures of 0 and 1. Look for the book on Amazon, link on the channel. The Great Binary Bug Hunt. 0 and 1 had put a lot of effort into learning how to code, but they soon found that their programs still had a few bugs. They made the decision to go on a bug hunt to find and get rid of these annoying creatures. They began by checking on their code and searching for any blunders or mix-ups. They utilized an assortment of troubleshooting instruments to assist them with finding the bugs, for example, bit-by-bit execution, code profiling, and memory investigating. They likewise found out about the various kinds of bugs that existed, like rationale mistakes, grammar blunders, and race conditions. They perceived how these bugs could make their projects crash, act unusually, or even make security weaknesses. As they dug further into the universe of bug hunting, 0 and 1 likewise found out about the significance of testing their code completely. They perceived how testing could assist them with getting bugs from the beginning, before they got an opportunity to create difficult issues. They learned about unit testing, integration testing, and acceptance testing, among other types of testing. They were able to see how each kind of testing had its own advantages and disadvantages, as well as how they could be combined to make a comprehensive testing strategy. However, they did not end there. They additionally found out about the significance of bug following and the board. They perceived how bug following instruments could assist them with monitoring every one of the bugs they found, dole out them to colleagues, and keep tabs on their development after some time. They likewise found out about the significance of correspondence and joint effort in bug hunting. They perceived how imparting data and thoughts to their colleagues could assist them with addressing troublesome bugs all the more rapidly and actually. 0 and 1 also realized that bug hunting was a never-ending process as they carried on their search. They came to the realization that even code that has been thoroughly tested and written can still contain flaws, and that new flaws could appear as their programs developed and grew. Yet, they likewise perceived how bug hunting was a fulfilling process. Every time they discovered and fixed a bug, they felt proud and accomplished something, knowing that their code was getting stronger and more reliable. Furthermore, as they finished their bug chase, 0 and 1 felt a re-established feeling of trust in their coding abilities. They realized that they had acquired significant experience and information, and that they were more ready to handle any coding challenge that came their direction. But the most important thing was that they knew they had each other. Through their adventures together, they had developed a strong bond and were aware that they could rely on one another to assist them in overcoming any challenge. They were an unbeatable team, prepared to conquer the coding world and beyond. More stories about 0 and 1 can be read in the book The Binary Adventures of 0 and 1. Look for the book on Amazon, link on the channel. 0 and 1 go to computer school. 0 and 1 had put a lot of effort into learning how to code, but they realized that there was still a lot to learn. In order to improve their skills and knowledge, they made the decision to enroll in a computer school. There were students of all ages and skill levels attending the computer school, which was a crowded place. 0 and 1 were thrilled to begin their new journey and eager to learn as much as they could about programming and computers. Their most memorable day was a tornado of movement. They took classes on software, networking, computer hardware, and programming languages. They found out about the historical backdrop of PCs and how they had advanced after some time. They also learned about Python, Java, C, Ruby, and other programming languages and how they were used to make different kinds of programs. They perceived how programming dialects had their own sentence structure and syntax, and how understanding these dialects was urgent to turning into a gifted developer. 0 and 1 quickly realized that they still had a lot of work to do, despite their amazement at how much they were learning. They went through extended periods of time examining, rehearsing, and trying different things with various programming dialects and methods. They additionally found out about the significance of good programming rehearsals, like composing spotless and effective code, recording their code, and teaming up with different software engineers. They perceived how these practices could assist them with making excellent projects that were solid, secure, and simple to keep up with. 0 and 1 had the chance to work on real-world programming projects as they continued their education. They developed programs with other students to address real-world issues like inventory management, expense tracking, and data analysis. In addition, they were able to meet special guests and participate in workshops and seminars on a variety of programming and computer science-related subjects. They perceived how these occasions could assist them with keeping awake to date on the most recent patterns and advances in the field. However, maybe the most important part of their involvement with PC school was the kinships they shaped. They made strong connections with their classmates and teachers and met other students who shared their enthusiasm for coding and technology. 0 and 1 felt a sense of accomplishment and pride as they graduated from computer school. They realized that they had acquired important information and abilities that would work well for them in their future undertakings. However, they were also aware that their travels were far from over. They understood that innovation was continually advancing, and that there would constantly be new provokes and potential chances to investigate. 0 and 1, on the other hand, were confident that they could deal with anything given their newfound knowledge and abilities. Since their first meeting, they had come a long way, and they were confident that their friendship and cooperation would continue to be beneficial to them in their subsequent ventures into the world of coding and beyond. More stories about 0 and 1 can be read in the book The Binary Adventures of 0 and 1. Look for the book on Amazon, link on the channel. A binary treasure hunt. When 0 and 1 received an unexpected message, they were enjoying a peaceful day at home. It was from their companion, the PC researcher teacher Double, welcoming them to go along with him on an expedition. However, the treasure hunt was not like any other. 0 and 1 were aware that they were the ideal team to solve the binary treasure hunt. 0 and 1 quickly made their way to Professor Binary's laboratory, excited by the challenge. They found the professor waiting for them there, holding a stack of papers with binary code on them. "Welcome, my companions," said the teacher. "You have my challenge. The only way to discover the treasure I've hidden in this city is by deciphering these clues." The stack of papers was given to 0 and 1, and the professor explained that each one contained a binary code clue. To tackle the riddle, they would have to disentangle each hint and utilize the data it gave to reveal the area of the fortune. 0 and 1 immediately got to work. They were aware that binary code was a system that used only 0 and 1 as symbols to represent numbers. In a binary number, the rightmost digit represented 20, the second rightmost digit represented 21, and so on. Each digit in the number represented a power of 2. They realized that they were being taken on an intricate journey through the city as they deciphered each clue. They needed to utilize their insight into software engineering and programming to interpret each hint, and afterward utilized the data they assembled to reveal the area of the following piece of information. They had to overcome a number of obstacles that put their knowledge and abilities to the test. To find a clue, they had to solve logic puzzles, get through intricate mazes, and even hack into a secure computer system. Notwithstanding the difficulties, 0 and 1 stayed not entirely settled. They realized that their kinship and cooperation were their most noteworthy assets, and they cooperated to settle each riddle and reveal the area of the following hint. They came to the realization that they weren't the only ones looking for the treasure as they got closer to it. The treasure was also being sought by a second group, which included some of the best programmers and computer scientists in the city. 0 and 1 were aware that if they wanted to beat the other team to the treasure, they would need to be creative and clever. By creating a distraction with their programming skills, they were able to get past the other team and reach the final location first. They discovered the treasure in a secret location there. It was a little chest loaded up with interesting and important PC parts and devices, alongside a note from the teacher complimenting them on their prosperity. 0 and 1 felt a deep satisfaction and achievement as they checked the fortune out. They were aware that they had demonstrated the power of their friendship and cooperation by solving a challenging puzzle. They realized that their adventure had taught them more than just how to solve a binary treasure hunt as they returned to the laboratory. They had likewise found out about the significance of determination, cooperation, and critical thinking abilities. As a result, 0 and 1 were confident that they were prepared for any upcoming binary adventures. More stories about 0 and 1 can be read in the book The Binary Adventures of 0 and 1. Look for the book on Amazon, link on the channel. The Binary Olympics. 0 and 1 were eager to find out about the impending Parallel Olympics. It was an annual gathering of computer scientists and programmers from all over the world to compete in a series of binary code-related challenges. 0 and 1 were aware that this was their chance to demonstrate their abilities and compete with the world's best. They promptly started planning for the occasion, preparing consistently to work on their abilities and information. The paired Olympics comprised of a few occasions, including speed coding, investigating difficulties, and, surprisingly, a network safety rivalry. 0 and 1 were aware that if they wanted to win any of these challenges, they would need to be at their best. The speed coding challenge served as the first event. The contenders were given a bunch of programming undertakings to finish, and the person who completed them the quickest would be proclaimed the champ. 0 and 1 had been rehearsing their coding abilities consistently, and they were certain that they could beat different contenders. The test started, and 0 and 1 began composing away at their consoles. Using their understanding of binary code, they worked quickly to create programs that were both effective and efficient. They sat back and waited for the other competitors to finish their tasks. Once they had completed all of them, the outcomes were made public a little later than expected. They were overjoyed to learn that 0 and 1 had won the speed coding competition. They realized that this was only the start, and they needed to continue to try sincerely to win different difficulties. The debugging challenge was the subsequent event. The competitors were given a program with a few errors, and they had to find and fix them as soon as possible in this challenge. 0 and 1 were confident that they could succeed in this challenge because they had extensive debugging experience. The test started, and 0 and 1 began searching for mistakes in the program. They worked quickly and were able to spot even the tiniest errors thanks to their understanding of programming and binary code. They sat back and waited for the other competitors to finish after they quickly fixed all of the mistakes. Following a couple of moments, the outcomes were reported. 0 and 1 had won the investigating challenge, and they were elated. They were determined to maintain their success in the competition, knowing that they were doing well. The cybersecurity contest was the final obstacle. The competitors had to defend a computer system against attacks while also attempting to hack into the systems of other competitors in this challenge. 0 and 1 were prepared for what they knew would be the most difficult challenge yet. 0 and 1 began working on their defenses shortly after the challenge began. They constructed a robust and secure system by utilizing their understanding of cybersecurity and binary code. They additionally attempted to hack into the other contenders' frameworks, utilizing their programming abilities to track down shortcomings and take advantage of them. 0 and 1 systems stood strong against attacks from other competitors as the competition intensified. They also managed to hack into a few other systems, which helped them get more points. They were sure that they had done well in the test. Yet they needed to trust that the outcomes will be declared. The results were finally available. 0 and 1 had won the network safety contest, and they were excited. They had succeeded in winning the Binary Olympics. 0 and 1 realized as they celebrated their victory that their success was not solely attributable to their abilities and knowledge of binary code. Additionally, it was due to their friendship and cooperation. They had cooperated collectively, supporting one another and utilizing their assets to conquer their shortcomings. As a result, 0 and 1 were confident that they were prepared for any upcoming binary adventure. They had shown what them can do as the best on the planet, and they were pleased with what they had achieved. More stories about 0 and 1 can be read in the book The Binary Adventures of 0 and 1. Look for the book on Amazon, link on the channel. 0 and 1 meet the binary robot. One day, 0 and 1 were strolling through the park when they noticed a strange machine among the crowd. They saw a metal robot with blinking lights and whirling gears. As they got closer to the crowd, 0 and 1 were captivated by the robot and chose to draw a nearer look. The robot turned to them and said, "Hello there," as they got closer. "I'm a twofold robot. My name is 01010100. Wow," stated 0. "We have never before seen a robot like you. What do you do?" "I was modified to help people in their day-to-day assignments," answered the robot. "I can organize files on a computer and clean the house, among other things." "That's incredible," shouted one. "How could you be modified?" The robot explained. "I was programmed using binary code, just like you two. However, my programming is significantly more complex than yours. I was worked to assist people with their work." 0 and 1 were charmed by the robot's modifying and inquired as to whether they could find out more. The robot agreed to demonstrate more complex programming concepts to them. Over the course of the following couple of days, 0 and 1 found out about cutting-edge programming ideas, for example, calculations, AI, and man-made reasoning. Additionally, they learned how to program the robot to perform various tasks. They were eager to apply what they had realized and chosen to program the robot to partake in a paired Olympics contest. The binary robot won a number of competitions and impressed the judges with its sophisticated programming, proving that it was an excellent competitor. 0 and 1 were thrilled to have learned so much about programming from the binary robot and were proud of their new friend. They looked forward to learning more about advanced programming concepts in the future and were aware that they had made a friend for life. More stories about 0 and 1 can be read in the book The Binary Adventures of 0 and 1. Look for the book on Amazon, link on the channel. A binary tale of two cities. 0 and 1 were interested about the world past their old neighborhood and chose to take an excursion to investigate new spots. As they voyaged, they coincidentally found two urban areas that were unfathomably not the same as one another, yet both depended vigorously on double code. The first city they went to was a big, bustling city with tall buildings and busy streets. This city was home to some cutting-edge organizations and the most cutting-edge innovation on the planet. There were digital displays and computer screens everywhere they looked. 0 and 1 witnessed the use of binary code to power everything from laptops and smartphones to intricate machinery in this city. They saw how cutting-edge software was developed using cutting-edge programming languages and how various tasks were automated using artificial intelligence. This city's inhabitants were always on the move, coming up with new ideas and pushing the limits of what was possible. They took pride in their ability to create amazing things using binary code and were enthusiastic about their work. They went to a small town with a more laid-back atmosphere as their second city. The structures were more modest and less present-day, and individuals appeared to have a more slow speed of life. 0 and 1 witnessed the application of binary code in more conventional settings, such as manufacturing and production. In this city, they perceived how even the least difficult machines depended on parallel code to appropriately work. The people of this city were just as proud of their use of binary code, despite the fact that it was less advanced than the city before it. They knew a great deal about binary code and were experts in their field. 0 and 1 were captivated by the use of binary code in these two distinct cities. They understood that despite the fact that the two urban areas were immeasurably unique, the two of them depended intensely on the force of double code to work. 0 and 1 began to consider ways in which they could utilize their newly acquired knowledge to assist people in both cities as they continued their journey. They considered developing a machine learning algorithm that could assist the high-tech city in further increasing its efficiency and a program that could assist in automating specific tasks in the smaller town. They were amped up for the conceivable outcomes that lay ahead and realized that they could have an effect on the planet through their utilization of parallel code. More stories about 0 and 1 can be read in the book The Binary Adventures of 0 and 1. Look for the book on Amazon, link on the channel. The Binary Bridge to the Future. On their binary adventures, 0 and 1 had seen a lot of the world and learned a lot about the power of binary code. They had seen how it was used to make incredible things, solve difficult problems, and bring people together. In any case, as they progressed forward with their excursion, they started to consider what was to come held for parallel code. They realized that innovation was continually advancing, and they thought about what sort of new developments would come straight away. They came upon an odd structure as they were walking through a field one day. It seemed to be a scaffold, yet it was not normal for any extension they had at any point seen. The whole thing was made of binary code. Inquisitive, they moved toward the scaffold, and as they drew nearer, they saw something significantly more impossible to miss. The scaffold appeared to be throbbing with light, and the twofold code appeared to be moving and changing right in front of them. 0 and 1 realized that this was no customary scaffold. They came to the realization that it was a bridge to the future that they could cross. They stepped onto the bridge with anticipation and excitement. As they strolled across it, the double code underneath their feet started to quickly move and change considerably more. They saw pictures of amazing new technologies being made with binary code. They saw robots that could think and learn like people, vehicles that drove themselves, and clinical advances that could fix illnesses that were once thought serious. Yet, they additionally saw the risks of these new advances. They saw how hackers could use binary code to commit cybercrimes and steal valuable information, as well as how destructive weapons could be made with artificial intelligence. aware that they had witnessed both the potential and danger of the future of binary code as they reached the bridge's end. They realized that it would be up to people like them to ensure that the power of binary code was used for good and that its power would continue to grow. They realized that they had an obligation to utilize their insight and abilities to make positive change on the planet. They were aware that they possessed the ability to develop novel technologies that had the potential to address the most pressing issues in the world and enhance the quality of life for people everywhere. Thus, 0 and 1 ventured off the twofold scaffold to the future, prepared to confront the difficulties and open doors that lay ahead. They realized that what was to come was unsure, yet they were sure that with their insight into double code and their enthusiasm for having an effect, they could assist with molding the world into a superior spot. More stories about 0 and 1 can be read in the book The Binary Adventures of 0 and 1. Look for the book on Amazon, link on the channel. 0 and 1's Binary Birthday Bash. 0 and 1 had been on endless experiences together, and they had achieved such a great amount since they initially met. They had taken in the force of parallel code, investigated the miracles of the web, and, surprisingly, crossed a scaffold to what's in store. 0 and 1 were looking forward to one more thing, however, their double birthday celebration slam. To commemorate their friendship and all that they had accomplished, they had decided to throw a party. They came up with numerous binary-themed activities and decorations over the course of several weeks as they planned the party. They made binary code streamers, balloons with 0s and 1s printed on them, and even a binary code treat-filled piñata. 0 and 1 were full of anticipation as the party day approached. All of their binary friends, including the binary robot, had been invited. The party was a lot of fun. There were games, dancing, and, of course, many treats with the binary theme. Binary brownies, binary burgers, and even a birthday cake with candles shaped like 0s and 1s were available. 0 and 1 were appreciative of their friends' friendship and the many adventures they had shared as the night progressed. They were aware that they couldn't have done everything they had done without each other. Similarly, as they were going to victory their candles, they heard a noisy thump at the entryway. They went to answer it out of curiosity and discovered a group outside holding a sign that read, "Binary Birthday Surprise." Surprised, 0 and 1 were. Although they were excited to see what these people had in store for them, they had no idea who these people were. A group of scientists and engineers who had heard about 0 and 1's incredible adventures and wanted to express their appreciation for their contributions to technology were the surprise. They thanked 0 and 1 for their dedication and hard work by giving them a special award. 0 and 1's gratitude was overwhelming. They felt honored to be acknowledged for their efforts, something they had never anticipated. As the party proceeded, 0 and 1 understood that this was really an extraordinary day. They had praised their companionship, however they had likewise been perceived for the work they had done. Although they were eager to see what the future would bring, they were aware that there was still so much to learn and so many adventures to come. As the night attracted to a nearby, 0 and 1 smothered their candles, feeling thankful for all of the 0s and 1s that had driven them to this second. They realized that they were simply getting everything rolling on their excursion, and that there were vast conceivable outcomes sitting tight for them in the realm of paired code. More stories about 0 and 1 can be read in the book The Binary Adventures of 0 and 1. Look for the book on Amazon, link on the channel.